Morning, friends of the realm of Terra. I am Master Serv, creature of Rye, member of the Volkrog clan, and today it is my very great pleasure to be joining you so that I can read you an excerpt from a favorite book of us in Rye, The Shadows of Lela, Book 1 by Tessonja Odette. And to prevent from doing any spoilers or anything, I'm just going to read Chapter 1. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I am actually good friends with Cora and Valor. Actually, I don't really want to know what they think about me reading their book, but I'll deal with that on another occasion. Chapter 1, Exile. Coraline. You know, I always call her Cora. I've never called her Coraline. She always introduces herself as Cora, the few times that I've spoken with her in person. Well, creature to ride to mortal. I felt her screams before they left her mouth. A pain that was not my own invaded my body, flooding my senses with ripples of terror. I sat upright in my bed and rubbed sleep from my eyes, trying to separate myself from the intrusion. The sharpness in my abdomen and the pressure between my thighs were not the sensation of a 10-year-old girl like myself should have. Oh boy. Lynette! The realization sent me running from my bed. No, please no, it's too early for the baby. Baby? Cora's able... Oh, that's right! Oh, you're going to have to read the book, it's fantastic. I'm going to continue. Another scream reverberated through my mind, so much louder and clearer than before. I fell to my knees and put my hands over my ears in an impossible attempt to drown out the sound. I took a deep breath and forced the sound to recede until I was left with nothing more than a sharp ache behind my eyes. My vision blurred as I stood and fled, half blind and nearly naked in my shift down the hall. I ignored the next scream, yet could not help but double over with rekindled fire in my abdomen. I bit my lip and tears pricked my eyes. Still, I forced myself onward, stumbling through the empty corridor of Rydeen Castle until I found myself in Lynette's room. Empty. I knew where to go next. The pain had grown stronger as I neared the birthing chamber, and I had no doubt I would find her there. My heart sank. Kind of a difficult deal, kind of a difficult power for a 10-year-old to deal with. I opened the door to a scene of grim-faced queen's maids surrounding the birthing bed. Lynette's pain still burned in my side, yet I managed to keep my composure as I pushed my way past the melancholy woman to my sister's side. "What's wrong?" I demanded of the queen's maid, ashamed of how small my voice sounded. "You shouldn't be here, sweet princess," said one of the maids, laying a sympathetic hand on my shoulder. "This is no place for a young lady. You should return to your bed," as if she could, even if she wanted to. I shot her a defiant stare, and not another word of reproach was made. I turned my attention to Lynette, quivering and pale upon the bed, auburn hair soaked with sweat, head lolling from side to side as she mumbled and moaned. Her frail white hands twisted in the blood-stained sheets as she gripped them with all her strength. The midwives were in an anxious flurry at the foot of the bed. This was so much worse than last time. Last time? What an unusual thing. I clutched my abdomen, the pain almost impossible to endure. I wanted to run away. I wanted to free myself from her agony, yet I remained at her side, still as stone, feeling each spasm as if they were my own. Far too much for a 10-year-old to be experiencing, in my opinion. But, alas, we all have our own abilities and powers. My eyelids fluttered as waves of pain rose and subsided, over and over, tearing through both of us for an endless time. Hours passed, or was it days? I knew nothing but agony, until finally the torture was over. Lynette lay still. I touched her lightly on the shoulder, and she slowly opened her eyes, blinking into the light of the room. She took in the faces around her. When her eyes locked on mine, she pulled her lips into a small smile. I tried to mirror her, but could manage no more than pressing my lips into a tight line. No matter what I told myself, I couldn't shake the nagging fear that the danger was yet to pass. "My little sister," Lynette whispered and reached a trembling hand toward mine. A sob escaped my throat as I grasped her cold fingers. Sister. Lynette may not have been of my blood, but she was my sister in every other significance of the word. In the 5 years since she had married my brother, we'd grown close enough for her to fill the portion of my heart left by my parents' death. How could I bear it if she left me too? My baby? Lynette's brows furrowed as she lifted her head and tried to look over my shoulder. I turned to the downcast midwives. They shook their heads, confirming what I already knew. Tears streamed down my face as I delivered the news with a solemn shake of my head. My heart broke alongside Lynette's as I watched the anguish pass over her face. Helpless, I could do nothing but witness the storm of her emotions flooding my consciousness. What use is this curse of mine if I can't help anyone with it? You know, I agree. I agree. You'll have to read my story for details, but what use is powers if you can't do anything with them to benefit those around you? I prayed for her emotional turmoil to subside so I can be free of it myself, but when it finally did, I realized it could only mean one thing. Her fight was over. She was slipping away. Lynette's hand fell limp from my glass. "Get the king!" I shouted at the sobbing maids. "Now!" A flurry of commotion erupted behind me. It took only a few moments to summon a red-eyed King Demetrius. His face was slack as he entered the room, and a moan escaped his throat as he fell to the knees at his queen's side. I quickly backed out of the room, gasping for air as I choked on the suffocating emotions. I took flight down the hallway, stopping only when I felt like I could breathe freely again. I fell to my knees and shouted into my hands. My anguish dissipated into a wail as I pounded my fists on the stone floor beneath me. I cried for the loss of my mother and father. I cried for Lynette and the 3 children she'd tried so hard to bring into this world. I cried for the burden I carried, knowing all of this was happening and being helpless to stop any of it. "Now, my child, that's enough of that," said a voice behind me, startling me from my grief. I turned and glared into the pale, long, scowling face of my enemy. My sorrow hardened into hate. "What are you doing here, Mordecai?" Ooh, that's a fun name. I like that name, Mordecai. Enemy. I think there's more to this story than meets the eye. Let's read on and see how he's an enemy. "You act as if I don't live here too!" He looked down at me with a self-satisfied grin. I stood and faced Mordecai with balled fists. "How dare you come near Lynette's birthing chamber? I know you were responsible for this." "Coraline," came my brother's shout from down the hall. "How could you say such a thing?" I could barely meet his eyes as I faced him. The pain on his face was enough for me to know that Lynette was gone. I hung my head and muttered a tearful apology. "Come now, Demetrius. She is just upset." "I take no offense." I clenched my teeth, hearing the double effect of Mordecai's voice. The voice my brother heard was genuine and caring, but I could hear his true voice, and it was full of mocking and malice. "He has no right to be here," I whispered. "He has every right. Mordecai is one of the most powerful mages in all of Lela. Whom else should I want here at a time like this?" My head snapped up, and I stared at my brother with wide eyes. "You invited him here? To Lynette's birthing chamber?" "He was trying to save her, Coraline." "I doubt it." I remember meeting Mordecai once or twice while he was still in mortality, and I highly doubt it. "It's true. I gave her a healing tonic." Healing, yeah, right. "And placed every protective spell around her that I know." Maybe protection from having a child in the first place. I'd believe that. "I'm sorry I couldn't do more." Mordecai rested his hand on my brother's shoulder in what appeared to be a comforting gesture, but I recognized the influence of control flowing from his palm. Heat flooded my body, a fire I could not ignore, my muscles tense, quivering from my shoulders to my toes. "Was it the same tonic you've been sleeping Lynette in her drink every night?" "That was for fertility," Demetrius said, "to bring us a son." Demetrius is an idiot right now. I ignored my brother, my eyes locked on Mordecai. "Or was it the same tonic you put in my parents' cup every night before they died?" I like this girl. She's got a good head. That was falling. Oh, look, that one fell too. Demetrius's shadow fell over me as he took a foreboding step between me and Mordecai. "I don't like what you were implying. If I hear another word of disrespect from you, I will throw you out of this castle forever." He murdered our parents. That's a lie. He's killed every child you've ever conceived. Enough. Demetrius's face was beginning to redden. That should have been enough to quiet me, yet the fire still burned within. He murdered your wife and you invited him here? Not another word, Coraline. You might as well have just killed her yourself. Demetrius raised his hand and sent it across my face. After a moment of stunned silence, I placed a palm on my cheek and glared at my brother through a pool of tears. I knew I had crossed the line, but never expected Demetrius would strike me. You will get out. You will never return. Demetrius's voice held a cold, sharp, unfamiliar edge. His eyes were hard and black. I could barely make out the green that used to shine so brightly. Demi, I whispered, you have disrespected me, and I am not only your brother, but your king. You have disgraced the name of our deceased parents with your lies. The queen is just moments dead, and already you speak evil of her. Please, Demi, I'm sorry. She didn't speak evil of the queen. She spoke evil of the Morkai dude. I don't ever want to hear another word from your mouth. Don't get out and do not come back. You are hereby banished from Redine Castle, stripped of your name. You are no longer Princess Coraline of Kiro. You are nobody. You are dead to me. Your memory will be buried with the queen. I stood frozen, staring at my brother, looking at the face that had become a stranger's. My brother is dead to me too. Morkai grinned at me over my brother's shoulder, jubilant with triumph. A shiver ran down my spine as I understood the full and incredible strength of his powers. I had underestimated him. Tears stung my eyes. My hands clenched into fists. I didn't know whether to scream, cry, run, or plead. I chose to run. That was chapter 1 of Shadows of Lela, one of James's and mine favorite books by Tessonja Odette. And wonderful, wonderful story. I'll be posting the link in the comments to Amazon, and hopefully you guys will enjoy the book as much as I, James, Amanda, and my other friends in Rye have.